This video is for you if you were born with a male vehicle. So again, regardless of your gender, identity, or expression, regardless of your sexual orientation, if you have a male body, then your vehicle is going to move energy in a certain direction, a certain way. And so this video is for you if you have one of those this time around in this incarnation. And I'm going to assume that you've already watched the video that I created on the Black Moon Lilith for Kabbalists. So if you haven't already seen that, please check the link below and look at that first. So I'm going to launch into what if you have a male vehicle, how do you work with Black Moon Lilith? And that specifically that elemental fuel, that even demonic fuel that's in the body, how do you work that toward will? Because our aim, again, in this aeon is to bring the spirit all the way down into the body, into that which makes us unique. We're each individually going to be, hopefully, manifesting our Godhead. Each one of us is God, ultimately, but how do we actually make that a reality as opposed to just a potential? So the first thing you need to know is that the male is dynamic on the plane of the Ruach, which is to say those spheres above Yesod, up to Tiferath or lower Tiferath, the mind essentially is what that's called, what that means. But on the other hand, the male is receptive or passive on the astral plane. Now, Black Moon Lilith connecting Malkuth, the realm of the four elements, to Nitzak, which is fire, it's the Manipura chakra, and it's the realm of Bhakti Yoga, where we ideally worship our inner deity and bring the energy back up to the source again. That's the function of the right-hand pillar. That path is essentially worked through the astral. So if you're a male, you can't do it directly, not the way a female can do it. So you have to find a new way. And another way to think about the problem, this comes from Western Tantra. If you have other familiarity with other forms of Tantra, this may not sound familiar because it's very different, or Phalllic Tantra. So the idea there is, in Phalllic Tantra, the male is never supposed to unite directly with Earth. Because if he does that, essentially he just earths out all the energy and it gets, so to speak in Old Testament terms, he scatters his seed, on the earth, and it's just wasted, essentially. The will of God can't be done that way, which is what we're all trying to do, is allow the will to work through our incarnation. So how do you, as a male, to put it in those terms, how do you work the will of God through your body without actually wasting that spirit? So the way to do it is indirectly. And so this is actually a lesson that we can take, all of us, and then I'll apply it specifically to you as a male. Remember that every planet that's above Saturn, in other words, the outer planets, are showing us parts of our deep psyche, our deep self, or even our divine self, as though it were outside of us. So when we're looking at what we call the external world, we're not actually seeing anything but ourselves. The difference is we're seeing a vast hidden part of ourselves. This is a great lesson for all of us to remember. It applies in different ways for all of us, but in this particular case, I'm bringing that up because when you face your universe, which is also represented by Malkuth, so in other words, the most outermost surfaces that you see, if you're drinking a cup of coffee, it's your cup of coffee. It's your face in the mirror. It's the trees. It's the birds. It's your partner. Whatever it is, all that is you, your divine self. And so you have to really internalize that principle. At least practice working with that in order to apply the advice I'm about to give you about Black Moon Lilith. So the trick to working Black Moon Lilith with a male vehicle is to recognize whatever seems to be outside of you in your universe. Again, that has to do with Malkuth and also the path of Tav or Saturn, connecting it to Yesod. Whatever you see outside of you, you have to relate to it in ways that correspond to each of the four elements. So basically, you have to be able to interact with your universe. and it could, but need not include a female partner. But it's easier to think about in terms of a female partner. Of course, you may not have one. You may not like to have one or whatever, but it could be a sexual partner. It could be a close associate of some kind. In any case, to relate respectfully to your universe in 4 ways. One is sexually, corresponding to Yesod. One is intellectually, corresponding to Had. A third one is emotionally, corresponding to Nitzak. And a fourth and final one is spiritually, corresponding to Tiferath. So it's like you have to balance all 4 of those modes. And when I say respectfully interact with, what I mean is truly try to figure out what's there. And respectfully means, on the one hand, recognizing that whatever's coming at you is something completely foreign from the little you, something completely separate. So if it's a human, for example, recognizing that they're completely separate from you. And then on the other hand, the same time, balancing that perception with the idea that they are one with you, that this is what I've been saying, that it's actually a reflection of your deepest inner self, your divine self, your angel, if you will, your angelic self. So basically, at the same time, holding the perspective that they're identical with you and completely separate from you. And if you can balance that on 4 levels, and this is a little bit harder from the male, then you can actually access Earth safely. You can actually unite with your, what I'll call your inner woman or inner feminine, inner female, maybe that's a better way to put it, through interacting with the external world in those 4 ways in balance. Then you can actually unite, become one with your universe or female partner in those 4 ways. Again, not to agree, not to kowtow, not to basically be subordinate to, but just simply for the sake of recognizing that which seems completely different and other than you is that and is completely identical with you. And that allows you to work with the path of Koph directly, because it's a receptive function that you have to develop. Basically, you're receiving that input, you're on those 4 different channels, and you're actually working with it to take it seriously without actually compromising your little self, your egoic self, which has to do with the Ruach. Your ego, your self-image in the Ruach, it may have to change a little bit, but you're not going to compromise your own perspective. So you're going to hold your center at the same time as you're going to become receptive to this periphery. And that's the secret. Now, Black Moon Lilith in your chart is going to give you some keys to how to do that, because by sign and house, it's telling you what you need to specifically attend to in those 4 ways in order to achieve that feat. And it's not, as you can tell, it's kind of complicated from a male perspective. So let's give an example. Let's say that you have Black Moon Lilith in Cancer in your natal chart. So and let's say it's in your 10th house. So you're going to be, basically your whole life's curriculum is working in that basic way with Black Moon Lilith. Of course, it'll change by transit and things like that, but let's just make it simple. For your whole life, you'll be working in that way. So with Black Moon Lilith in Cancer, and it's going to be saying you're going to really attend to, when you're attending to those 4 levels of being with your universe, you're actually going to be exercising intentionally a caring, almost motherly modality. So again, you don't have to, you could have like an Aries sun or something, you could be very masculine. Let's say it's, and let's say you have your Mars and Aries too. You could be like a really uber Superman macho guy. But what it's saying is that when it comes to this particular exercise of how do you work your inner woman, your receptive lunar self through this path so that you can really truly bring your whole physical self into alignment with will, then you're going to still have to develop or work with a Cancer type of relationship with those 4 parts of something that seems outside of you, or even a woman. So that basically you're going to become, in that respect, a nurturing person. And it may take some work depending on what else is in your chart. Again, you could have things that are, basically making you like not give a care or whatever in your natal chart and stuff. So then it might be harder work to do this, and it'll just be harder for you to access this. And it's not a moral imperative. It isn't like, oh, if you're nice, you'll do this. No, it's just saying this is what you need to do to access your inner receptivity so that you can rise up the pillar, as opposed to just earthing out and remaining, a slave essentially on earth to your body. So and then in the 10th house, let's say, That's telling you what is the quintessential department of life in which you do this. So your 10th house is the house of career and vocation, what you're called to do for the world. That could take any number of forms, obviously. I mean, traditionally, people say it's your career. So if you're a professional of some kind, you're a doctor, you're, I don't know, you're a TV host, whatever it is. I mean, so you can exercise, let's say even in those situations, that caring modality with specific emphasis on how it contributes to your career. Now, it could also be a spiritual teacher. I mean, it just depends on what your calling is. Your calling isn't necessarily how you make money, though it can be. It's really truly what you're called to do. You could be a poet. It's, notoriously not everyone can make a living as a poet, hardly anyone. But if that's really what you're here on earth to do, as you've understood it, then through your poetry, you're exercising that nurturing relationship with everything that you see, everything that you encounter, feel, smell. You're going to be loving it, nurturing it through your poetry, let's say. So that's just one example. And just to give you a different one, let's say it's in the 6th house instead of the 10th house, but let's still say it's in Cancer. So then the 6th house regards health matters, routine, your body. It can be mundane work, and as well in a more esoteric sense, it could be discipleship. So basically what that's saying is that you exercise a nurturing, loving relationship with your body, with even the small day-to-day tasks that you do. Maybe you're fixing the sink, maybe you are washing the car, whatever, all those little routine things. Or again, with a relationship with a student or a master in a more esoteric sense. That's how you exercise that Black Moon Lilith to access the path of Koth that connects Malkuth and Netzach. Well, it's kind of complicated to say. I hope I've been clear. Please let me know if I haven't. If you have any questions, please ask me.